Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street, small business lenders who help it grow. Chris Hearn out of Florida. Chris, thank you so much for joining us, CEO of Fountainhead Capital. Katie Roach, our editor of the Coleman Report. Chris, how are we doing down in Florida today?
It's cold, Bob. It's 52 degrees right now. I've got 3 layers on.
Well, I was going to say 52 for Florida is cold. I think our friends in Alaska and Minnesota may.
I'm sure. I'm a wimp. I'm a former Midwesterner, so my blood is thinned over the years considerably.
Yeah, they may be doing. Hey, we got today. We're going to do a recap of PPP. So let's get into it. You know how to ask questions. You know about certificates. Let's go to this. How many PPP loans were made over $2 million nationwide? We wanted to clarify this from yesterday. Katie, what's the answer?
So it seems like most people on the call know what they're talking about. It was 28,982, so almost 29. So right there with the 40%, that's correct.
Very good. Very good. And second question is, how many PPP loans, how many forgiveness decisions has SBA made on all PPP loans? Those are huge numbers, Chris. There's a lot of zeros there.
There are, but remember, there's like 5.2 million PPP loans. So.
No, that's what I mean. That's. What do you have? We're pretty well split. What's the answer?
Pretty close, yeah. So that one was going to be the 367,000. So it looks like about 24% of our audience guessed that one correct.
Very good. And finally, what we really want to know is how many of the PPP loans have you received forgiveness approval by SBA? And I think last time we did this, Katie, it was 0, correct? Or we had 1?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. We might have had some fat fingers. I think we had 1 or 2 people say it, but could have been an accent. It looks like we might have a few now.
Started to trickle in. Chris, have you had any experience with this at your shop?
No, we only did, I think, 5 or 6 loans, PPP loans over $2 million, and I think we've only submitted 1 of them, so we don't have any information yet.
You don't have too much.
No.
Kate, let's talk about this real quick since we have this slide. Where are we on the new rules? Any rumblings in Congress about loosening those up? And here I'm talking over $2 million, or is this what we got and we're going to have to live with it?
Well, we are hearing maybe a little bit from I believe the House. There was a member of the House that said something, but not too much yet. I know there was a letter that went out a couple weeks ago signed by many trade groups that were really pushing for this these questionnaires for these $2 million loans to be discarded or changed in some way. A lot of people are claiming they were unfair. But so far, those have not been removed yet. So we are still waiting to find out more about that. And we did receive, I believe, a few days ago, instructions to go along with those questionnaires. So they are giving us more information about how to complete those questionnaires. It's just a matter of if we're keeping them or not. We really don't know.
Right. Very good. Chris, the key thing is blanket forgiveness under 150. What's the latest that you've heard about that? Just to be clarified, we are officially at under 50,000. It's not blanket. You have to do some certifications. Trade groups, so everyone's pushing for 150. What have you heard?
Well, it's the same thing. I think the trade groups are zeroing in on these 2 issues, which is they think that this form, as Katie said, is a bit unfair. I think it's going to be very difficult if somebody were to litigate, as I've said before, on whether they needed a $2 million or higher PPP loan or not. I think the spirit of the law sort of supports the borrowers getting it. But then the trade groups are also focused on this blanket forgiveness for the 150 and below. We'll see what happens. I mean, I thought maybe something could happen yet in this Congress, but they're now of course focused on the budget and trying to pass either a new budget or continuing resolution here in the next 10 days. So I have a feeling PPP is going to get pushed to the.
I was going to say, when is the continuing resolution due by?
December 11th.
December 11th. Okay,
Yep.
very good.
Yep.
Katie, in terms of Washington, we do have John Riossi coming on in a couple days. He'll give us some more of an inside look. But in terms of Washington, I mean, we're all reading the same thing. Everyone's saying something needs to be done, but nothing's being done. Do you see any movement? What do you see?
We have seen several Congress members saying that they want to do things. I've seen some written drafts of some bills, so they are working. They're just not voting at the moment on these issues, but there is some new drafts on some bills, and there is some talk. So they are still thinking about this issue.
There's allegedly a group of, I think it's 9 or 10 bipartisan senators that supposedly had phone calls yesterday talking about trying to push relief efforts. So I don't know. We'll see. I just have a hunch that everybody's going to be focused on the budget for the next week and a half, and PPP.
Well, yeah, what our hope is, obviously they need a continuing resolution to keep the government going. Last thing we want is a shutdown before Christmas, but in the year 2020, who knows?
Let's be surprised if it didn't happen, right? That's right.
Pile it on. We forget. We forget we had a government shutdown earlier.
2018, actually.
I think it was last 2019.
No. It was 2018. It was December of 2018, and it lasted 40 some days, I think. Partly the reason I didn't announce that we had gotten our SBLC license, actually. So I know it well because this government shut down 3 days after SBA approved us.
Well, hopefully we've had several questions about what would a Biden administration and SBA lending look like. We're not quite ready to talk about that yet because we haven't seen anything. But as more and more comes out, we will obviously talk about that. I would have no clue in terms of where we are in terms of new administrators or programs. So we're looking at it. I got nothing to report on that. But
I do think it'll be pro SBA. Let's just hope President Biden gets the agency correct, as he, unlike in one of his discussions where he kept calling it the Small Business Association. So I'm sure somebody will get that.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I don't see overarching theme is I don't see many changes. Any changes would be pro SBA, pro Main Street.
Right.
It also, obviously it's tied into what's going to happen if there's a Republican-controlled Senate. So there's a lot of moving parts on this. I don't see any drastic changes. No one's talking about it, but we will be following very, very closely. Hey, I want to talk about Lance is doing his webinar later on in less than an hour on business acquisitions. If you want to do that, just send Joseph an email. We'll do the paperwork. We'll do the paperwork later. But what level does SBA require a business valuation? Chris, I'll let you take a stab at that one.
I believe it's 250, but honestly,
and you believe correct, as our audience knows.
There you go.
So we the answer is not all of them. However, you can make an argument.
Yeah, good prudent lending.
A prudent lending would take at least a look at that. It's not required in the SOP, but I have no issue with someone says, hey, I'm going to do an eyeball. I'm going to check it out. I know there's some websites, they're not as accurate as maybe a Redfin or a Zillow with respect to commercial businesses. But if you have a good relationship with a business evaluator who knows SBA, they're more than willing to give you a one-page letter on what they think at a greatly reduced cost, or maybe even as a compensation. But that needs to be in the file. Finally, this is coming out. I'm going to have Katie talk about it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of the script. Katie, we're releasing your top 10 issues managers and C-suite need to be concerned about. And we sort of throw that out to everyone. What is your number? These are all important, but we're asking you to pick one. Status of blanket forgiveness for loans 150. Tax deductible of PPP loan forgiveness at the state level. In other words, if the government forgives it, is the state going to tax it, added SBA scrutiny, or Congress passing additional PPP stimulus funding? Chris, what do you think of those answers?
I think they're spot on. I think that's what I would have said. I would have said the forgiveness of loans less than 150 and additional stimulus are the two major issues going forward. The other stuff is important and certainly important for borrowers, but but not as critical as I think the first and the fourth item here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 43% in terms of passing addition to stimulus. I mean, that's a strong statement, but people are saying, hey, that's the most important thing out there. So good. Well, thank you for participating in that vote. It helps us do that. Talk about, Katie, you did a nice report today, did a nice chart. And what are your results?
So this is just kind of an overview of where we are with PPP right now. And it's nice to kind of look back every once in a while and see where we've come from and kind of look at the numbers. There were a lot of lenders who participated in this program, 5,460. There were 5 million, a little over 5 million loans worth $525 billion. It is a large program, probably, I know it is one of the largest SBA has ever participated in.
The largest.
Yes.
By far.
If you had told me last year, Chris, if I had told you, Chris, hey, we're going to do a $500 billion of SBA lending, you go, all right, Coleman, you're done.
Yeah, I would have put you out to pasture. There's no way I would have ever imagined this.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, top PPP lenders. Of course, all of this information is on the SBA's website. You can pull it all up. I've just organized it all here and in my article. There's a chart there to help as well. So if you're kind of confused about these numbers or the percentages, it does help to kind of look at an infographic every once in a while. There is still a lot of loans out there that need forgiveness, that are still either haven't applied or the lenders haven't sent it over to SBA. That's more than half, I believe. So we're still really solidly in that early forgiveness process right now.
Yeah, and don't forget, obviously, territories are eligible: Guam, Virgin Islands, the American Samoas. What about Marshall Islands Federation? Anything out of there? I always like looking at those from time to time.
I don't know.
People live there.
There is a list of all the territories that participated. I know. I was going through the list of states there that got the most and the least PPP loans. Of course, California got the most. That's partially because of the size of the state and everything. And the American Samoas, I kept looking at AS thinking, what does that state mean? And I couldn't think for a minute. Yeah, American Samoas got the least with 296 loans.
Good. Employment's employment wherever you are, and they're certainly the U.S. citizens. Number one was healthcare, and number two you had what is professional, scientific, and technical? Can you be more specific on that?
So that's probably going to be, professional is going to be mostly the people that you would be going to do a job for you. It's not going to be a service, or it's going to be a service, not a product. Scientific and technical, I think a lot of that loops into the healthcare industry as well. So really those, I believe one of them is higher by number and one is higher by, or number of loans, and one's higher by number of dollar amounts. But really they flip too. So those are very close.
Do we have an idea, and maybe Chris knows this, of when these forgiveness apps are due? I know there were 2 rounds of funding. So for the first round, when do they have to have their applications in? Does anybody know that offhand?
Technically, they've got, if you look at it from a deferment standpoint, they have the initial 6 months, and then they've got an additional 10 months, so 16 months. I don't think there's anything beyond that. And if they don't submit it, I guess we don't really know what would happen other than the borrower would start, principal and interest payments at the end of that, because the deferment period would be over. But I think, look, the numbers that Katie's putting together, which I thought the infographic, I saw it earlier today, I thought it looked great. We're tracking right along. We've only seen 11 to 12% of all of our PPP borrowers actually begin the forgiveness process. Many are far from actually fully certifying and uploading their documents. But I think a lot of people, as I've said before, they're just waiting until after the first of the year, either because they don't want to mess with it, or because their accountant is telling them to, or because they're hoping that Congress will do something to change the stuff. But a lot of people seem to be waiting, and so we're just not seeing the uptake that we expected originally. It's caused us, and I'm sure a lot of other lenders on this webinar, to revise their projections for the remainder of this year and into next year as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's going to be a concern. Lance will be addressing that in terms of how to deal with those loans on cash flow on business acquisitions. Hey, Katie, I don't see the slide here. Oh, okay. Let's talk about, here we go. This has been released. What do we got?
So the SBA has released loan level data for all loans, including those under $150,000. They include kind of the same information we had on the loans over 150, including the city and state and zip of the borrower. We don't have borrower names, but we do have NAICS.
We don't have the names. Okay, interesting.
No, we have the business type. Then there's a little bit of information that was optional with race, gender, and veteran status. Of course, we don't have that filled out as well. Jobs reported and date of loan approval, and we do have the lender. So we do have the lender, but we don't have the borrowers.
Do you have the underlying, do you have their address?
We don't have the full address for just the city, state, and zip. So you could get somewhat close, but you don't know the exact location.
And we don't know the names, but we have everything else. Okay, well, I think that's probably a fair compromise. And then there's the deadline for forgiveness apps that I was talking about. We have 8 to 24 weeks. And if it's not forgiven, the interest rate's 1%. Am I correct on
That's
that?
right. That's correct.
Can't argue with that.
And there's that FOIA lawsuit too, that this data may be getting released soon for SBA. That some of
this
folks
is
in the
the
media.
initial response to the lawsuit, and I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it was due by Monday.
So that's right. That's right.
SBA could do that, and then the question is this sufficient, or who did the lawsuit? Was it the Washington Post?
It was the Washington Post, American Business Journals, a whole variety of big national media.
I think ABA was in. Yeah. This is interesting. I haven't had a chance to read it, but this is an interesting report. It comes out semi-annually from the Inspector General. It's about what? How many pages is it, Katie?
Oh, I think I just flipped through it, but I think we're looking at around 80 pages or so. It's a thick one this time, but I will be trying to work through that and try to pull out the highlights for everyone so that it's a little easier to comprehend, because nobody really wants to sit here and read all 80. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people do want to read all 80 pages, but a lot of people don't have time for that.
Yeah, but it's interesting on that. And as soon as the Plum Jobs report comes out, and the Plum Jobs, we love writing that every 4 years, and the Plum Jobs are the government jobs that need to be filled by a new administration. And the reason they called it Plum is because originally, back in the day, it was a book. It was a purple color. So a lot of regional administrators and a lot of political appointees, and you get to list their salaries, and that's it. Probably sometime in the next couple of weeks. But that's always a fun a fun report to do. Very good. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. We're finished. Katie's going to release her top 10, and yeah, there we are. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate Chris. Appreciate your time. I know you're busy.
Thanks for having me.
Katie, good job. And thank you for joining us and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.
Take care.